Hello, I'm Matt Whittingham, and welcome to the latest episode of Southside Stories, the podcast where we talk to business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, particularly in kind of Southwark, south of River Thames, that part of London. We tend to focus on great individuals from that part of the world. Just a reminder, if you haven't yet subscribed, we'd love you to do that. Lots of great guests that we've had, more guests to come. So please do all that good stuff. But today with me is Warren Rogers from Connection Crew and Stitch. Hi, Warren, how you going?
Good morning, Matt. Yeah, really good this morning. It's Friday, so nice
It
to join you.
is. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a Friday. It's kind of we're into autumn now, aren't we? But so far it's not too bad. We've had some nice days this week, so yeah, all good. Warren, we're going to go into a bit of detail because you've got a slightly different way of approaching business life with your social enterprise, and we're going to get into a lot of detail around that in a second. But just tell us a little bit about you first. You know, what's your journey been like? What's your background? How did you get to the point of running a social enterprise?
sure. So I guess it all started back around the university days. I was educated outside of London. I moved to London. I went to Kingston Uni, or Polytechnic as it was then.
Mm.
And I got incredibly involved with, I guess, the art scene in and around that. I studied geography, which I've certainly haven't carried on since then. But I guess being around people trying to make a different sort of late 90s, there was quite, I think, there were a lot of people pushing for change, and we found an expression through doing events. So at that time, I held, I think, my 21st birthday party. We put it on at a nightclub, and we generated some money out of that. And we thought, hey, this is a great way to sort of fund our way through uni. And we came up with a small collective between four of us called NISM, standing for Not an Ism at the time. But the idea was it was a platform for yeah, young people, aspiring people to come together and perform. And we started doing events, we started doing nights. And out of that, we thought, well, actually, if we're generating cash, how do we put this to good cause? So we teamed up with some charities, Crisis, Medical Foundation, and others. And we ran these events for aspiring artists and giving the proceeds out to those organizations after the events. And I think that was the catalyst for my move into, I guess, music and events. And as I left university, I went out and I worked as a freelancer. I was given a leg up into the industry by Fiona Stewart, who now runs the Green Man. But I also worked for her at the Big Chill Festival when that was an event.
Yeah.
Both managing areas, zones, looking after stages. And I just fell in love with the sector, the pressure, the journey, and it just really resonated with me in terms of what we were a day's hard work in a field with people, all of the same kind of, I guess, ethos and thinking. And out of that, I started working across multiple events, and then I moved up into South London to Brixton. I started working for a string of venues, nightclubs, other bits and pieces, and I had a good stint at that for 10 years. So I guess experience within the sector, very much grassroots, trying to support people getting onto the stage, and really passionate about, I guess, the music scene. I'm not a musician. I can't put I'm tone deaf, but I love bringing people together and actually doing the organization to bring events together, essentially.
Yeah, fantastic. And what is it about events? I mean, you've alluded to it a bit there, but the few events I've been, they're quite nerve-wracking, aren't they? But I guess that's sort of part of the appeal, is it? You know, that...
Yeah, I mean, a colleague of mine who worked with us for, I guess, 5 years, he then moved on to become a fireman, and he's done a few bits of work with us since. And his comments to me have been, it's more stressful working on an event than it is being part of the London Fire Brigade. And I think just that all coming together for that one opportunity to deliver an event brings so much, I guess, dedication, experience, camaraderie around the team that's coming together to deliver that event. And then you deliver it, and once it's done, it's all over, and you're kind of on to the next one. And there's something special in that drives some people, but it's not for everybody. I think running a labour agency and working across multiple events, we understand that.
And how was the whole sort of, because of course, when COVID hit, events and those live experiences And that must have been a very challenging time for you. Just give us a sense of the overall kind of events industry, and has it picked up? Is it back to pre-COVID levels?
Yeah, I mean, the events industry bounced back
Yeah.
in 2022. So obviously the pandemic's 2020, 2022, there was just this build up for a need of events. So the
Mm,
sector wanting to put them on. So there was a huge amount of work. I think we've never done as much work in that 2022 period. So we bounced back, we grew more in that year. And then it settled in 2023, and it sort of maintained around the same level. But it was hugely disruptive for a sector that uh, relies on bringing people together en masse
mm.
for an event. It was just everything stopped, and yeah, it really stopped overnight. But I think that we lost some key players during that time. We lost a lot of experience within the industry, so a lot of people left to find work elsewhere. And I think now, 2025, of those who have then started post the pandemic, we're starting to see experience rebuilding again within the sector, and we're also seeing people starting to come back. But there was an exodus, and I think that first couple of years afterwards, the event sector changed a considerable amount to how it was before.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It seems to be. I mean, talking to agencies in and around where we're based, marketing agencies and other event companies, there seems to be a strong demand, I think, for that kind of authentic, real life experience. Almost, I guess, and we've seen such huge growth in music festivals as well over the last 10 or so years. But it's almost like people are actually searching for those in real life experiences, is it almost as a counterpoint to the digital environments that we spend so much time in.
Yeah, I think that's real. I think the reality of all on our computers all the time, and just as humans, we crave for social interaction and to be around others. That said, I think we saw an explosion of festivals and events. I think pre-pandemic. I think post that, actually, it's harder. As we know, the cost of living's gone up, but also the cost of suppliers when supply chain has escalated rapidly. So I think, unfortunately, actually, the sector's experienced a bit of a downturn in terms
Mm.
of the volume of events. The UK was always a leading place for festivals, music events, that kind of thing, and definitely it's harder to deliver those. And each summer since 2022, we've lost probably 5 or 10 key events, and actually we see a bit of a monopoly now. I think in terms of larger organisations, promoters buying up. A lot of the market, and there's quite an interesting report that's been published by the Association of Independent Festivals recently, talking about the percentage of those owned by sort of corporate ownership and those that are truly independent. So I think it's an interesting space to see how that evolves over the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, yeah. How many people do you employ now?
So in the business, I'd say we're a fairly small supplier, as labour supplier. So we employ about 220 people on the ground,
Mhm.
and our office team is 22.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about a social enterprise, because I don't think everybody will be familiar with with what it means, and how it differs either from an established corporate, or even from a traditional non-profit organization.
Sure. Okay. I think that's it's interesting. I think social enterprise has grown significantly in the last 10 years, and there's definitely more of a space for it now. But crucially, as a social enterprise, we are for profit. So sometimes we're misunderstood as a charity, is that we're
Mm.
grant funded and that we're supported. Absolutely not. We are here to generate revenue. We're there to generate profits into the business, and we operate like any business would, commercially minded, with a sales pipeline and chasing down sales. And it's a very competitive market that we work in. We are the only social enterprise within the events labour sector. So we do have a USP in that in terms of what we do. But I guess as a business, we reinvest our profits back into the business to drive impact. There's all sorts of social enterprises out there. We work specifically towards supporting either homeless or ex-homeless individuals, people who have been affected by homelessness in the past. But there's many others out there working in healthcare's sort of community groups, mental health awareness, that kind of thing. There's so many of them now. But at the heart of what we do is the profits that we raise in our business, we drive them back in what we would call our social dividend, and that broadly supports the activities that we deliver as a business. So I'll come on to talk about what we do as a social enterprise shortly, but broadly it means that we can support people back into work. We can subsidize them onto the training programs that we operate. We pay for those training programs through that. We subsidize salaries for roles that perhaps other businesses wouldn't have that are looking after those individuals. And then we try and return profits back to our elected community interests, essentially.
Fantastic. Great. Yeah. Great description. Yeah. Much clearer on that now. So homelessness. So that's a big focus for you. Why in particular, homelessness and homeless people?
Sure. So back in 2005, when we started as part of the Connection at St. Martin's. The Connection at St. Martin's is based in Westminster. It's just off Trafalgar Square, next to St. Martin's in the Field. They operate Europe's largest day centre for homeless individuals just within the borough of Westminster. Social enterprise wasn't really on the agenda back in 2005, but um, what Connection at St. Martin's does that's different to some other charities is they support people off the street through their programs around social workers, rehabilitation, and getting them into housing. And then they try and go full circle in terms of creating job opportunities for them as well. So at the time, the idea was to start a social enterprise that was a labor based business and put people into getting out to work and around events. So events were growing at 20 years or so ago, and there was a need for labor. So their idea was, well, if we can create a social enterprise within the charity to create job opportunities, we kind of deliver full circle.
Great stuff. And then I think in 2005 you became a CIC, or a community interest
It was actually a little
company.
later. So
Okay. Yeah.
we started as part of the Connection at St. Martin's, and we started with six homeless people that had come straight through the work programs within the charity. And that six was put out to site, gone out to build experience, understand how events run, and it became sort of quite quickly apparent that working with exclusively ex-homeless people within what is quite a stressful environment of events, so working towards deadlines, timings, etc., that wasn't quite working. But they did incredible work. They pushed a number of people through that program and got them out to work and worked with some of the biggest companies out there in the business. So White Lights, who work across the West End in terms of theatre, lots of other agencies. So there was good traction. But what was real is the individuals really didn't know how to act or conduct themselves within a corporate environment. And they didn't quite have the experience to know how an event goes together. So how do you build a stage? How do you put up a Manfrotto? How do you fly lights? How do you put PA in? Which way round do cables go that connect the speakers, power, that kind of thing? So they did incredible work pushing people through the business. But the reality was in 2008, after the economic sort of crisis that was of that time, the business suffered significantly and it pretty much lost half its clients overnight. So the name of the game was, how do we sort of double our client base, because we were doing much less work. And being part of a charity, I guess the charity was risk averse in terms of thinking about doubling down on the business, investing in the business, and in reality, it wasn't washing its face. So the cost of the crew, the cost of the people within the business was costing the charity more after they lost so many clients. So it was about the time that I got on board with my co-founder at the time, so Charlie Dorman, who I worked with for many years at Connection Crew, and we started on a campaign to try and convince the charity to let us stand on our own 2 feet and to spin the business out and set it up as its own separate legal entity. So it was still early days, around 2008, 2009, of what we would call social enterprise. And we were looking for something legitimate to sort of hang the business on, to create or to mitigate against some reputational risk of spinning the business out and ensuring that it would stand on its own 2 feet and succeed. So one of those models that's out there is called a CIC, a CIC, a community interest company. and it's a fairly established model now. But essentially, we identified that as the legal framework that we wanted to take on to set the business up and spin it out. And we spun out in 2009, and we set up as a community interest company then.
Got it.
That allowed
Yeah.
us to take business risk, go out, look for investment, and actually act without having to act as a charity, but act as a business would. So thinking about what we touched on before, sales, demand, how do we meet that? And we landed on 25%, so 1 in 4 of our crew would make up a model that we felt that we could then deliver impact across our organization. So broadly, we could recruit from the open market. Yeah, 75% of people who perhaps had experience that understood events, that were already working in events, and that created the foundation for finding people that were hugely passionate about making a difference, coming in to support and work with those individuals, and really was the catalyst for how we started what we know as Connection Crew CIC now.
Brilliant. So, as well as being actually for profit and then having some of the things that go along with that, driving revenue, sales, all the things that we're familiar with, what would be some of the metrics? I mean, I guess that one of them is maybe that 25% goal. But what are some of the other metrics around that, the social side? How do you manage or measure your success there?
Yeah, so I think what's critical. So as a business, our mission is to uh, work with people who are either at risk or have been affected by homelessness. And that creates a large target group. It's not simply, I guess, what someone might think of as their rough sleeper. Broadly, it's people who are ready to get back into work. So we have some criteria, which means that someone needs to have a roof over their head, access to a bank account, access to a washing machine, has a mobile phone, and can essentially go home from a day's work, get ready to go back out to work. So our business, we aim to employ 25% of our crew that work on the grounds are people that would be from that affected background. That's quite a wide sort of pool, if you like. So it encompasses and deals with could be prison leavers, could be people affected by mental health, could be people from minority groups, and so a lot of those people could be at risk of homelessness. So many people within their paychecks, if they lost their job, could be 3 months away from effectively
Mm.
being sofa surfing or living in temporary accommodation. So whilst we don't actively target that group, actually they fall into quite quickly to a group that we are aiming to support. So we work with a number of partners. I think currently it's about 22. They might be charity partner groups, referral partners, housing associations, community groups, and they actively refer into our business individuals who are either have experience or have lived experience of homelessness. In terms of how we track that, we, as I said, aim for 25%. We do that in two ways. So we we count the hours that we sell essentially. So every hour or every day that somebody works on site, we sell those and we count those hours and we count those in terms of the volume of hours we've delivered over the year and then a percentage of that. And we also do a head count. So the amount of individuals that have come through our training program that are currently on our books and who are working at any one time. As a business, we've worked with over 450 individuals now who have been affected by homelessness, and that's delivered over 250,000 hours of work on the ground. So something that we're quite proud of, but yeah, something that we're always trying to improve and evolve and see how much more work we can generate essentially.
Yeah, that's fantastic. There's some very impressive numbers there. And behind those numbers, there would be lots of really individual impact that you've had on people's lives. Tell us a little bit about that. What have you seen there in terms of perhaps somebody that coming in that's had a bit of a bit of a rough background perhaps and has come in and, with your guidance and working alongside more professional people, established people in their careers. Tell us a little bit about some of the personal, individual impact that you've had
Yeah,
there.
I mean, I think first and foremost, yeah, I've been in the business since 2008, and that is still really the key driver for
Yeah,
me, is the
yeah,
fact that you can really make a difference to somebody's life,
yeah.
just by giving them an opportunity that perhaps somebody else wouldn't. And it's so easy to create that opportunity. There's, yeah, hundreds of thousands of businesses out there that really could lean into this a little bit more, in my
Mm,
view.
mhm,
But yeah, I'll touch on a few of those stories. So from our first six, one of those individuals, he stayed with us for a number of years. He learned the ropes. He understood what it meant to be event crew, working long days, putting events together. He left us. He moved on. He worked for one of our clients as a freelance production manager. He worked there for 5 years. He's since moved on and he's started his own business running an event production agency, and he now uses us for crew. So when you see that in action, the difference that you can really make, not for just somebody who's coming into touch with you quickly and then leaving, actually you can really impress on somebody who's generally quite young, the real opportunity of what and how they can make a career within the event sector. And I very much see us as a stepping stone to people to come through, work in different venues every day across the city, exciting places, indoors and outdoors, big old halls. There's a lot of historic buildings across London, and no day is the same, let alone the job that they're asked to do. So they really do land on the ground and get a wide variety of work to do. So, yeah, that's one individual that we've seen come through early days. We had another individual that came through, similar sort of story, stayed with us though for over 10 years, really was passionate about how we'd supported them back into work. So stayed on board. Part of what we do to support people back into work is we have a peer mentor scheme. So we buddy individuals that come through our training academy once they're out on the ground doing work with mentors, and they support them over the first 3 to 6 months, giving them an opportunity to speak to somebody about the pressures, stuff that they don't understand, about the reality of the job. So he stayed with us. He then supported individuals across the organization who were coming into work, understanding and being much closer to their journey, having done it themselves.
yeah.
And they've since moved on and they work for a client. And again, that client now books us. So it's circular and it's really good for business. Um, and lastly, we took on an individual a year ago. I think he came through our academy, fantastic, knew nothing about events, but just had such a can-do attitude. And I think for them, when they land in the business and they meet people who are genuinely warm, working for a social enterprise, many of our crew are warm to those individuals that we're trying to support. So they want to support them and they want to see them succeed. And they've since come through, they've been with us for a year, and we've just been able to offer them a full-time job working as a production assistant in the business, on a much wider variety of events. So, yeah, for us, it's about how do we create success and full-time jobs for people.
Fantastic. What inspiring stories those are. Um, you touched on training there. I mean, as well as training, of course, on the technical aspects and all the things you talk about, putting a stage up and the lighting and sound systems. Softer skills. I mean, something that's coming perhaps into the workforce, maybe it's for the first time or has been out. I mean, things like communication skills,
Mhm.
interaction. I mean, how does that form part of the training as well?
Absolutely. I think
Yeah,
something that will maybe resonate with people listening is that for people who have been out of work for a long time or have really struggling to get back into work, quite often for them to go to work for day one is a real stepping stone,
yeah.
but they don't actually realize that they have to go to work on day two and day three because they've been so far from the job market. And I think it's quite a nice example in terms of those softer skills and that communication, because reality is we're looking to support people back into the workplace but with what works for them. So through our training academy, which we fund, yes, we do the hard skills, learning about equipment, loading boxes, manual handling, working on events, but actually part of that is you know thinking about communication. How do you work as part of a group? How do you follow instruction, but not find that that instruction is creating confrontation, but is actually working as part of a team? How do you communicate effectively to others who perhaps aren't experienced or are in a very chaotic, large environment that's very much like a construction site, multiple contractors on site, hundreds of people running around, and staying calm within that environment? So, really communicating to them about their place, feeling confident enough to ask questions when they don't know, because that's absolutely fine. But there's many other areas as well around, softer skills around, simply traveling around London. getting to sites on time,
Yeah.
understanding the travel network, and getting to work on a Sunday morning when half the tube is closed is, supporting them with that. Digital skills, navigating an app, and how to confirm work and to fill in their hours and their timesheets and bits and pieces to be able to communicate that back to us. And what we see a lot over the summer is where we're working on outdoor events, events like Creamfields, the Green Man Festival, Glastonbury, is, you guys are going to sites to work for maybe 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes nowhere near sort of a cafe or somewhere where they can get food. So we talk to them about nutrition as well, taking water, taking food, thinking about that, making sure they're getting breaks, and just really understanding how they can manage themselves and their bodies to deliver the demands of the work that we are working on.
Brilliant. You probably get to see kind of physical changes, don't you? And the way people, like their confidence levels or how they look and how they behave. Do you see a lot of that in when you're dealing with folks that have been
Absolutely. I
through?
think one
Yeah.
of the challenges, I mean, a lot of the work that we do is in the corporate sector. So we
Mm.
work on conferencing, meetings, events, exhibitions, that kind of thing. And our crew are all asked to wear a uniform. So yeah, we work within health and safety standards. So you need steel toe cap boots on site. But to pick out one individual from hundreds of people on site, you wear a Connection Crew branded t-shirt or a Connection Crew branded high vis. We give you gloves, hard hat, um, and other bits of PPE that you essentially need on site. So that can be quite challenging for individuals to think that they have to fit to that conformity of wearing uniform. And one of the challenges we have is, keeping that aligned so as we feel pro and corporate on site. But what you do see is once people realize that they are part of something and they are part of a team, and what that team is trying to achieve, not only in their day-to-day work of we've delivered this event, wow, look at what we've built, but also we've worked alongside these people, we've built friends, and we hang out and socialize outside of work as well. You do see a change in them, and you see them really come on, a huge steps for them. Doesn't work with everybody, but for those who really land and really understand it, it's a melting pot of diversity, different individuals, and an opportunity for people to make great friends. And when you make that, you build the foundations of stability in your home life. Um, and how you're approaching that, you build stability around your finances, and that does bring around a real change in people, and you do see that in them.
Great. Great. Love it. Tell us a little bit about the event side now, because I mean, you've alluded to some of those, yeah, very famous events, but tell us maybe one or two examples of events that you've been involved with that you're particularly proud of, especially when maybe that, that social aspect comes into it.
Yeah, I think I mean, in 2024, we worked on over 4,000 events as a business.
Wow.
So, and that's obviously not delivering those events or producing those events, but that's supplying our service, so our labor service. So,
Yeah.
providing crew, we allow businesses to temporarily scale their workforces up to be able to deliver those events. And we go in and we support them to build them. That said, we also work across a number of events, more closely with partners that we've worked with for a long time. So key clients include people like the BFI, BAFTA, the BBC, Underbelly, Royal Ascot. So, you can just imagine the amount of work that we're doing across those events. But I did think about this, and I thought what was particularly unique to me and what I'd perhaps worked on that I felt really sort of resonated with the business. And it's some time ago now, but back in 2012, part of the London 2012 Cultural Olympiads Disability Programme, we worked with a long-standing client, Greenwich and Docklands International Festival, and they've worked with us from 2010 up until now. They employ our crew across their huge program of arts that runs every August for 3 weeks. I think it's Europe's longest running outdoor festival of street performance, and our crew take part in a huge amount of events there, not only building the events, putting in the fencing and the infrastructure, building the marquees, but also actually getting involved with some of the performance. So back in 2012, we were privileged to be part of an event called Prometheus Awakes that Bradley, who's the creative director there, conceived, and it was a collaboration between Grey Eye Theatre Company and a Spanish arts company, La Fura del Baus. And this event was it was a spectacle, and it was a real sort of push towards how do we bring the magic of events together in one event. And it was held at the National Maritime Museum outside the Queen's House. There were over 70 volunteers that were disabled that volunteered to the program. And the two theatre companies brought together a spectacle of theatre, which was performed for 5,000 people within the grounds. And there were projections onto the Queen's House. There was I think, a 12-meter giant puppet of Prometheus that brought fire and humanity and defiance of the god Zeus to the events. But the real magic was bringing a crane to that event, and these volunteers volunteered to be flown on a spider web of rigging above the audience. So 50 disabled people from London
Wow.
were rigged onto a crane, onto this web, and flown over the heads under the lights in the evening of all the audience there. And for me, that just embodied, I think, what we do as an organization, the opportunity that we create for people to go out and work on events. And I think the magic of London around how we work across so many different sort of audiences and sectors, and leading into, it's not, events are for everybody, essentially. And you touched on it before around how events are different now, and I think events are slightly different to back then. But I'm really keen to see how the arts delivers over the next sort of 5 and 10 years, and where the budgets are found and the funding's found to be able to continue to deliver these sorts of events for the people for free, for people to take part in and to aspire to. Because I think it's that people look at and want to come and work in our sector and work in our industry.
Great. No, I love that example. It's almost like a very powerful metaphor, isn't it? On the crane suspended, the kind of the visual of somebody that's part maybe the 25% high above, soaring above the crowd like that. That's fantastic. As just talking, I was just thinking about the seasonality of events, because I guess there is the high season. I assume is of course, the summer. Are you able to maintain a level of activity right through the year? And what happens, when you're scaling up perhaps for the summer months? How do you help people through the off season?
Sure, I think it's a challenge that we have within the business, and one we haven't been able to
Mm.
resolve. Reality is we are busy from April to December seasonally, I guess, as a sector, as an event sector, and that sort of January to March time is always quiet. So how do we find work for individuals to keep them busy through that period? So I guess it's dealt with in part by the scale that we operate as a business, is that we're able to keep our core crew on during that period. But we do legitimately work within the gig economy, and people do come and go within the sector. So we scale our workforce temporarily within those summer months, and we have to recruit at the beginning of the summer and sort of during the autumn period. And we do that from the open market, but we also do that running our training academies as well. So recruiting impact candidates into the business. But if anyone is listening, knows any, of a part of the sector that's busy during that quiet time, I think it's a challenge that we face not only as a labour agency within the event sector, but as the sector as a whole. But I equally think it gives some respite. The
Yeah.
events industry is so busy and relentless during those times. Actually, there's time for reflection, process change, updating, getting some time out, and really working on sort of, I guess, your business and your model towards being ready to be able to deliver for those summer months. So
Yeah.
we see a swing in our crew that goes up and down during that time. But I think being in the gig economy, we attract a lot of people who are perhaps, yeah, aspiring actors, people who are looking for a stepping stone into the industry, as I mentioned before. So there is throughput in terms of people who are coming and using that for summer work and for winter work. Students, a lot of students come and work with us during that period as well. And obviously they tail off. So there's a natural equilibrium, but I guess it gives us a bit more of a challenge as a business in terms of, those are harder months to be able to break even. And therefore we spend the rest of the year trying to catch up to sort of level out as a business how we're trading.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Okay. That's great. So Warren, you also have a sister company, Stitch.
That's
Um,
right.
Tell us a little bit about that, and how does that complement Connection Crew?
Sure. So I'd say it's a sister company in terms of what we do at Stitch. So Stitch is part of Connection Crew. It's purely another offering and a service. As a service, um, We provide production, technical design, creation, and delivery of events. So rather than providing the labor, we we provide that. We work on things like brand activations, conferences, meetings and events, exhibitions, and we take on the full, I guess, what you call concept to completion. So a client comes to us with a budget, and they want to deliver this event, whatever it might be. And then we come to them with some creative ideas, some designs for that. And then we support them through. We build that, we run that, we run the logistics, and then we see it all the way through to delivery. Now, Stitch is, I guess, partly controversial in terms of what we're doing as a business, but also very natural in terms of our journey as a business working within the event sector. So it's natural in the fact that the whole team here works on events. Majority of our office team have either come to us from the event sector, from crew who have then ended up with jobs here, or have worked on the festival sector. So there's a huge wealth of experience and knowledge around delivering events within our team. But as a labor agency, we tend to supply labor to businesses that procure or deliver those services. So you could see it as a bit of a conflict of interest. So whilst we will have experience in delivering events, actually I think there's potential risk in there for us as a business, but I think we can successfully mitigate against that. And really, Stitch was born during the pandemic when we had time on our hands and when we almost lost the business. The reality was that the event sector closed down overnight back in March 2020. And we went from having a successful, profitable business to having absolutely no work whatsoever. And 8 months in, thinking about whether we were going to close the business. So, actually, what we did during that time, whilst we were quiet, was think about what do we know, what can we lean on, and how can we think about de-risking, losing Connection Crew as a whole. And I guess we looked at our experience set and we knew that we could do events. And so we looked around us at our stakeholders, our partners, the people that we sort of were friendly with at that time, and we really leaned into our network essentially. And being a social enterprise, we are part of Social Enterprise United Kingdom, which is the government lobbying body to support social enterprise. So they run a campaign called Buy Social Corporate Challenge. And through that, they have a pot of about 30 multinationals. And they could be pharma companies, investment companies, banking companies, construction companies that are pledged to spend 1 billion with social enterprises. Now, as a labor business, we can't reach those organizations as, yeah, we operate pretty much at the bottom of the supply chain, providing labor to production agencies, creative agencies, production houses, that kind of thing. So we lent into that and we were, I'd say tenacious at best, in terms of really pushing for links, contacts of other organizations that were pledging to spend money within our sector. And out of that, by canvassing those organizations, we found that they were making a spend on, well, no surprise really, but they were procuring exhibitions, they were procuring events, but we didn't have a hope in hell of being able to deliver those. So 2 years into the pandemic, we came out of that and we were working with a few of those partners. We were delivering some events under the Connection Crew guys. But in reality, Connection Crew says what it does on the tin very much. We're providing labor. So we really needed to badge it up with something else. And so Stitch was born. Stitch was born as a production arm of our business to be able to deliver those services. And what we've seen as a result of that is huge traction, more than I thought that we would find with these corporates. So whilst we could come under the cosh for biting the hand that feeds us in terms of our labor model, actually we had to do what it took to get through that time. And now we've come out with a pivot in our business, a new service in our business, one that is now, driving a real difference in terms of our turnover, mitigating against margin within the business. And more than that, it's really driving impact back to those corporates that are procuring our services because we can tangibly add value to them in terms of how much impact they've delivered socially, but equally environmentally. And that gives us, I guess, a USP that a lot of event agencies are working with, but one that from us is authentic.
That's great. Just thinking about that a little bit more and Connection Crew and in particular, What are some of the main challenges working as and being set up as a social enterprise, versus, another event supplier that doesn't have that status or that requirement to do what you do? What are some of the challenges there, and how do you mitigate against that?
Yeah, where does the list start when you come to business challenges? I think there's some key ones. I think the reality of the event sector and the labor model is that there's an inherent cash vacuum within the business. So
Yeah.
we bill clients on traditional 30-day terms, but we pay all of our staff 2 weeks in arrears. So
Hmm.
straight away, our model is almost flawed because we pay our staff quicker than we do pay our clients. So I think there are cash challenges within that. But that's something that we can work towards, and at scale, you're able to build up cash reserves to be able to pay people in advance. But we do have to apply a lot of pressure to clients to ensure that they maintain their credit terms. After the pandemic, we saw a lot of payments becoming upfront as businesses were struggling with cash within their business. But in 2025, yeah, we actively lose business now if we're looking for that. So people do want to pay on terms. So it's about maintaining good credit terms within the business. As we know, corporates like to pay on 60, 90 days or whatever that might be. But I think there's a healthy conversation around a changing space there. And I think that as a social business, I feel very confident speaking to them and calling them out around longer payment terms when working with a social business is like really put your money where your mouth is in terms of let's ensure that we can provide the services that we do without the pressures of falling into your payment cycles, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think that's one. I think
Yeah.
another is just that inherent challenge running a social enterprise around delivering social value at the heart of our business against running a commercial business. Without the commercial sales and generating profit, we can't do the things we need to do as a social enterprise. But it's very easy to bury your head in the sand and just keep chasing sales and to leave behind what we're doing and our purpose and our mission. So ensuring that we have the right strong voices in our business that are there making social impact part of the conversation in terms of our decisions of what we're doing, when we're doing that, how we're doing that, ensuring that we've got active KPIs within our business that for our target group of impact candidates, we are ensuring that they are getting adequate living on living wage London work on a weekly or a monthly basis and not letting that just fall by the wayside. So, yeah, making sure that there's a real balance between social,
Yeah.
sort of purpose driven work that we're doing, coupled with our commercial, is probably one of the key challenges that is regularly talked about within the business here, on a weekly and a monthly basis, because there has to be a balance. If one takes a second seat to the other, then it's very quick that it can fall behind. And just with the very nature of people are targeted towards maybe generating GP within a business or targeted towards making sales within a business. But equally, you've got to target people towards making sure that our social and our environmental mission has the same seat and is given the same credibility as part of that. So it makes for good, heated conversation and debate here. But definitely, I would say, comes as a challenge that perhaps other businesses don't quite face in the same way as we do.
Yeah. Great. Where's next for you? I mean, where you've had this amazing track record, doing so much great work. Where would you like to take it next? How would you like to make an even bigger impact with either Connection Crew or Switch?
I think you're bang on there with the bigger impact. So,
Yeah.
as a business, we're trading at circa 5 million. We're by no means the biggest, and we don't want to be the biggest in the business. But what we do want to do is we want to do good work. We want to make a
Mm.
real difference to individuals around creating opportunity for people that are often overlooked by society. So, how do we use the business to catalyze change? How do we become a thought leader? How do we become a business influencer to, really drive people to think about this? In your day-to-day business or in people's day-to-day jobs, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about just getting the job that's in front of you done. And actually, I see, I guess, my role as custodian leading Connection Crew is how do we harness the energy that we've got? and the values that we're bringing to really remind people in the sector that they can make a difference. That difference could be procuring our services. It could be working with us. But equally, if they want to go and work elsewhere, that's absolutely fine. But how are they then perhaps taking on, leadership or ideas from us, how we're operating as a business to become better businesses? And I think that's really where I see the future of Connection Crew. I think we've just come out of a 3-year business plan, which was to recover from the pandemic, and we're just at the end of that. So the next 3 years for me is, yes, it's about growth, but it's about vision. It's about influencing change at a sort of a more granular level, and it's about talking to businesses and supporting businesses and giving those businesses the time of what we've learnt. So new budding social enterprises that perhaps are struggling or are facing sort of financial challenges or impact challenges. How do we share our journey a little bit with them to be able to support them on their journey and make better decisions?
Great. Love it. Love that vision for the future. Tell us about your leadership, Warren. How do you reflect on that? How do you think you've changed as a leader over the last 5, 10, 15 years?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think good question. Reflect on myself. Hey, about leadership. Uh, I think as I guess as a business leader, for me, what I've learned is being there for your
Mm,
team
mm,
and being able to resonate with them and perhaps the challenges that they're facing at an individual level is absolutely key. Uh, as I said before, I came from a grassroots level. I don't have a corporate background, but here we are striving with our business, working with corporates, and essentially being a process systems led business and having to bring sort of a corporate lens to that. And I think one thing that during the pandemic I realized is that I needed support. So we've had a non-exec advisory board around us for some years, but I hadn't lent into coaching or mentorship and had the opportunity to talk about perhaps my frustrations, my difficulties, my challenges. And that was a really positive experience that I wish to continue, and I would really recommend to other people that are perhaps struggling with those pressures that just build up, being either a sole leader or leading with multiple people because they bring different pressures. So I think that really allowed me to better understand who I am, what are my skills are, and what my weaknesses are. So I guess the change that we've put into the organization as we've come back over the last 3 years is bringing people on board who are better than me at other areas and giving them responsibility and accountability to take on those sections of the business and creating more of a course, there's a hierarchy within a business and within leadership team, and that naturally is within a business. But sharing the business challenges, warts and all, giving them transparency around where the difficulties are, what the problems are with the number, what the problems are with the people, and allowing that to be more of a collaborative approach to dealing with those challenges and bringing in specialist skills. So that's given me more time back to be better at the things that I'm good at, given me more time to listen to my team, support my team where previously I didn't have time, create opportunities for one-to-ones to speak to people about how they're doing at home, how they're doing in the
mm,
workplace. Why haven't we seen them so much, or
mhm.
why aren't they delivering to their goals? And I think that's really created a new invigorated approach across our team here where I feel like we've got one of the best teams that we've had for some time that have really bought into not only the business and the social purpose and the environmental purpose of what we're trying to do, but genuinely, and I'm sure there will be other opinions here, but I feel genuinely enjoy coming to work to take part in what we're trying to achieve because they feel like they are part of a bigger picture rather than just here to sort of drive a job. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess that's
Great.
been my journey of late.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. That's a great reflection. Who have you found has been a great inspiration to you? This is a question we ask everybody. Had so many different views on this. Yeah, sometimes it's
Yep.
somebody early in our careers, sometimes it's a mentor or a coach, sometimes it's somebody famous. But who's been a great inspirational person for you?
Yeah, I think I'd take 2 there, if you don't
Yeah,
mind. I'll
sure.
keep them brief, but, I think Yeah, celebrities, that's way outside of my sort of
Mm.
interest zone, but I think
Mhm.
it's about other organizations and other people that are passionate and
Mm.
really working across the social enterprise sector that I would
Yeah.
lean into. There's two individuals that I mentioned that I would just probably like to tip my hat to. One individual is Michael Amos from Waste to Wonder. Waste to Wonder recycle office furniture for communities, schools, and small groups, but worldwide. And whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, overburdened, too much on my plate, just think it's just how am I going to get through it all? I jump on LinkedIn and I see Michael's halfway around the world in Gambia laying out this furniture and supporting these schools. And every time I see him, he's traveling the world and he's doing that. And it inspires me to just keep going because there are other people out there that are as passionate about what they're trying to do with their small business, but to really make a difference. Um, and I think that really resonates with me deep inside. And I think he does a fantastic job of what he's doing. Um, and the second individual, actually, she works with us, but she also runs her own social enterprise, Camilla Marcus Dew of Amplify Goods. Camilla came to us in the pandemic to help us sort of build out some of our new ideas around pivoting our business. And she runs a fantastic social enterprise that delivers soap with a sort of a why make sure you refill your soap rather than reuse your soap.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And
I think I've heard of this. Yeah.
sh- she, again, is a hugely passionate individual around what she does and
Yeah.
her drive to whip up a storm, call people out, and to just make them see sense in why aren't you doing what you're doing or why aren't you procuring for the better good and holding people to account, I think has really supported me in terms of my sort of growth and how I approach my business here now at Connection Crew. So I think they're two individuals doing two very different things, but they're right at the heart of our sector and they are hugely passionate about making change. And I don't think they will leave until they've really solidified a change. And so I think if they can do that and they can do it with such authenticity, yeah, we really need to be able to keep up with them. So yeah, hats off to them
Br-
both.
yeah, fantastic. Two really, really powerful examples. That's really great. Warren, thank you so much for your time with us. I'd say if you are listening to this and you're involved in the events industry in any capacity and you're looking for some of the things that Warren's been talking about, we will put Warren's details in the supporting posts to this. But Warren, absolutely fantastic work. Absolutely love it. It's been really fascinating talking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me, Matt.